With 1.12.13.4, the aggregate function is available at the grid level. So earlier, this aggregate function was only available in the analytics config, and the aggregate function, whatever we choose from here for a specific measure, will be applicable to that measure wherever it is used across the model. So the changes, whatever we are done from the analytics config settings, will be applicable across all the reports wherever the same measure is used. So now, with this current change, we have provided this aggregate function in the grid customize column of a summary and matrix grid, so that the aggregate function that is chosen for a specific measure will be applicable only to that grid, so that average can be chosen for the same measure in a grid, whereas sum can be chosen as the aggregate function for the same measure in another grid. So to get that aggregate function, you should click on this gear icon and click on this customize option. Then the customize window will be available there, and at the bottom of the page you will see a drop down called grouper settings. So please note that this is available only for the measure columns, the numeric columns. So here we have five options available. So by default, whenever a measure is added to the grid canvas, the default aggregate function will be same as whatever it is set from the analytics config. But one time, if we change the default settings from this grid customize column, from then onwards in that grid for that specific measure, the aggregate function will be set as the changed one. So we have five different options: none, sum, average, maximum, and minimum. So if we choose none, that is like we are not choosing any grouper level settings for the group to row of a summary or matrix grid. So if you see here, the basic name is the top level and the inner level are dates. As we chose the aggregate function as none for the gross production volume gas, you can see that this aggregate level of the higher level is empty. So we will not apply any of the aggregate function. And suppose we are choosing the aggregate function as average for the same measure, then the higher level aggregate function will be average of all of its child levels. So now this will be average of all of this inner level values. Same way we can choose the available, any of the four options available. So it can be maximum, minimum, sum, or average, or it can be none as well. And if we save the settings here, once it is saved, we have to save the grid, and the changes applied will be local to this grid. So if we are using the same measure, say the gross production volume gas, this measure is using, suppose we are using the same measure in another grid, there we can choose the aggregate function as minimum, or it can be none as well.